Today's story is about a prisoner who always escapes jail, no matter the security. This is the tale of Japan's most notorious inmate, Suzuki, currently in the country's highest security prison. After guards finished their rounds, Suzuki grinned and removed a tooth. Later, when guards returned, Suzuki had vanished. They sensed something amiss, but Suzuki was long gone. The player wasn't there. He quietly escaped, hiding from above while the guards were checking their isolation cells. When they discovered that Suzuki had escaped, they quickly called the other guards and a crowd formed there. When Suzuki ran off the roof, the prison sirens loudly sounded and suddenly a torrential rain started. 12 years earlier, several prisoners including Suzuki, who were sentenced to 10 years, were brought to the prison. Since he never spoke, everyone thought he was surely mute. He also had a reverse tattoo of Mount Fuji on his chest. Suzuki was known for having escaped prison 3 times before. Then they placed him in a small room with a skylight. He scrutinized it as something was forming in his mind. The guard assured Warden Kanemura that Suzuki wouldn't escape this time. However, as soon as he glanced through the mirror, Suzuki had already disappeared. Warden ordered to surround the entire city so that Suzuki could not escape under any circumstances, but the guards caught him in 20 minutes. Do not know why, but Suzuki was running straight on the train track, after which he was again imprisoned in the same room, but this time he had handcuffs in his hands. When a guard peeped inside, Suzuki was sleeping with a sheet on his face. In anger, he asked Suzuki to remove the sheet because he did not want to take any chances, but when he did not remove the sheet even after repeated requests, the guards together beat him badly. The next morning, the warden took out all the old records of Suzuki. Every time he runs away, he is caught on the train strip. He went out on checking with the wooden guards at night. He was surprised to reach Suzuki's cell because he had somehow opened his handcuffs. The angry guards hit him and asked how he opened the handcuffs. Yes, how did he open the handcuffs? But as usual, Suzuki remained silent. Once again, he was washed fiercely. One day, Suzuki was playing with a small wire, which he somehow hid and brought inside the jail. The question arises that how did he bring this wire inside? Hiding in his mouth, hiding in the nagu, with the help of this wire, he used to unlock his handcuffs. A few days later, the warden went home on a week's leave. Now, Suzuki had a really good chance to escape. He took out the wire and tried to unlock the lock. Soon, a guard came there for checking. He peeked and saw that Suzuki was again sleeping with his face covered, but this time the guard left without saying anything. In reality, Suzuki was not inside. He was clinging to the ceiling like a lizard. He was waiting for the right moment to escape from the jail. After the guard left, he slowly moved upstairs. He punched a hollow spot in the roof and escaped from there. When the guards realized this, they immediately sounded the siren. The warden was also informed and he immediately left for jail. The next morning, the police were making plans to catch Suzuki, but the warden also arrived there. He instructed that they should abandon all their plans and send only one team to the nearby train tracks. The officers also felt that the old warden had lost his mind, thinking Suzuki would always go to the same place. But when the warden assured them he was 100% confident Suzuki would be there, they trusted him and sent the team. His words proved true as Suzuki was caught again on the train tracks. Pleased with his work in catching Suzuki due to his understanding, the warden was promoted. He had now become a senior officer who would visit all the country's jails to check on the condition of the prisoners. Suzuki escaped once more and was caught again on the tracks. Each year, he was sent to a new jail with tighter security, but he managed to escape from everywhere. For this reason, the media dubbed him the Star Fugitive, and he became famous nationwide. After 12 years, he was brought to Central Jail under heavy security with 10 guards monitoring only him. His room was made entirely of cement with many locks on the door. This was the isolation cell shown at the story's start. After the guards left, Suzuki surveyed his surroundings, preparing to escape again. A guard brought food and placed it in his cell. But before he could leave, Suzuki handcuffed him. The guard immediately blew his whistle, causing many more guards to come. In bad shape after regaining consciousness, Suzuki saw the guards moving through the door. Blood dripped from his face onto the iron bars and fell the next morning. The guards had tightened a few more screws on his handcuffs this time, so he couldn't open them. Before leaving, he took another moment for some body maintenance. This is how Suzuki's days passed, by deliberately picking fights with the guards. If they hit him, he would drip his blood on the iron bars. One day the guards hit him so hard he lost a tooth, but Suzuki picked it up and smiled weirdly. It seemed as if it was all part of his plan. After this, Suzuki started working on something on the wall with his teeth. A few weeks later, Suzuki attacked another guard. This time, he was given the most severe punishment. They tied him up with a long chain and hung him. 1 year passed, and Suzuki was still serving his sentence. His condition very poor. It was bad. His body had started to rot, and maggots infested his wounds. Finally, that evening, the guards came and unlocked his chains after a whole year. He breathed a sigh of relief as the old warden, Mr. Kanemura, arrived to inspect. He went to the isolation cell and saw that Suzuki's condition was dire, but he ignored it and left. Later that night, the story began when lightning crackled outside. Suzuki put his plan into action. He removed his tooth and started unscrewing the handcuff bolts. In fact, Suzuki wasn't making anything with his tooth on the wall, but grinding it to sharpen it so he could use it to unscrew the bolts. Freed from the cuffs, he went to the door and started pushing on the iron bars. The bars had rusted from his blood constantly dripping on them. Within moments, the bars broke and Suzuki escaped from jail. The story then told of Suzuki's birth. His mother died when he was born and his father was in jail, so he was raised by relatives. One day, Suzuki was practicing in the forest when he saw a man approaching from afar. It was none other than his father. They chatted for a while and then he noticed a Mount Fuji tattoo on his father's chest. Unfortunately, some policemen soon arrived, wanting to arrest Suzuki's father. Seeing them, he fled straight down the railway tracks. That day, Suzuki vowed he'd meet his father again someday. Now Suzuki was once again running on the tracks after escaping. Mr. Kanemura called out for him to stop, and surprisingly he did. Shortly after, a team of guards arrived and apprehended him. Even the country's highest security prison couldn't hold Suzuki. So, Mr. Kanemura ordered him sent to Prison Isle, the world's most dangerous jail. Prison Isle wasn't an ordinary jail. It was built in the middle of the sea with constant high waves. Most importantly, there were no train tracks and the sea was full of sharks, making escape nearly impossible. Getting away was next to impossible inside the prison, given the circumstances there. The entire jail was surrounded by thousands of guards, and any inmate who attempted to flee would immediately be shot. They were under orders to shoot anyone on sight who tried escaping. Suzuki was locked up in a cell, not just any room, and was quickly restrained. There were rods attached to Suzuki's body, physically restraining him so he could barely move, let alone escape. Escaping was impossible for him due to the tight confinement, whereas Kanemura was free to move. Kanemura went to the prison library to start gathering information about Suzuki. He stumbled upon some ancient files there, which he began to examine. While standing in the jail, Suzuki was deep in thought, and for the others, escaping was not an option. Though Suzuki had a plan in his mind, he suddenly dislocated his shoulders. Slowly, he started maneuvering his way out of the tiny space after dislocating his shoulders. A fellow inmate witnessed this but was too intoxicated to react or say anything. Meanwhile, Kanemura was still engaged in his research when the prison alarms went off. When the alarms went off, the prison warden was surprisingly pleased, not distressed. No escape route, and today guards get to shoot a prisoner. Mr. Kanemura tried explaining Suzuki's not ordinary, but the warden ignored him. Next morning, armed guards spread across the island. As the warden briefed his men, Mr. Kanemura arrived. He told the warden Suzuki came to find his imprisoned father. Everyone was stunned, revealing Suzuki's true identity. All that happened was part of Suzuki's plan. He kept escaping jail to reach Prison Isle. His real goal? Free his dad. Suzuki finally met him, both crying after years apart. Sadly, Mr. Kanimura and guards were coming, but Suzuki vanished with the old man before they arrived. He'd prepared a paraglider. They both flew away. Meanwhile, Mr. Kanimura tried talking to another old inmate. He spotted a Mount Fuji tattoo on his chest. This meant Suzuki took the wrong man after all that effort. Talk about bad luck. Would you go through so much for your father? Let us know in the comments.